Good afternoon. Needless to say, New Jersey is in mourning this week. On Tuesday, we lost our dear friend, a lifelong champion of the voiceless, and one of the finest public servants in New Jersey's history, the one and only Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver. Yesterday afternoon, I signed an executive order for all American and New Jersey flags to fly at half-staff at all state buildings and facilities to honor the life of the greatest partner in government I could ever have hoped for. And we will be lowering the flags for a full month, which I believe is the longest period of mourning for an individual in our state's history. I want to explicitly thank Senate President Nick Scutari for his stewardship of the state these past couple of days, but also in holding off on the executive order to lower those flags. Personally speaking, Tammy and I, along with our 4 children, are devastated. From the day Sheila agreed to join me in our first campaign in 2017, I have relied on her counsel, her compassion, and her courage at every single turn. And during our past 6 years of partnership, and it was, by the way, almost 6 years to the day, she had become an honorary member of the family. We posted after her passing, I think Tuesday, late in the day, a photograph from the night that we introduced Sheila to our kids, a magical evening in the East Ward in Newark, and it's a night we'll never forget. She became to them almost like an aunt, and she was a sister to Tammy and me. Sheila was a trailblazer in every sense of the word. Over her more than 5 decades in public service, she made history again and again as the first black woman to serve as Speaker of the General Assembly, as the first woman of color elected to statewide office in our state's history, and as the highest-ranking black woman to ever serve the people of New Jersey. But above all, Sheila was the pride and joy of Essex County. As governor, I relied on Sheila to shape our administration's policies on revitalizing our cities, expanding affordable housing, supporting our neighbors in need, and so much more. And I relied on Sheila not only because of her expertise and brilliance, but because she brought her lived experience to the table, both as a child of Newark and as a longtime resident of East Orange. She was an inspiration, an icon, and an irreplaceable friend, confidant, and leader. I would ask you all to keep the Oliver family and all those who knew and loved Sheila in your thoughts and prayers during this difficult time. And let us demonstrate that here in New Jersey we grieve together. And let us join together in memorializing the rock star we all cherished and the legacy she now leaves behind. In addition to signing that executive order, last night I spent time alone with Sheila in Newark and then had the great honor to visit with her mom and her brother and his wife and their 2 kids at Sheila's mom's home. And it was, as you can imagine, an emotional visit. In fact, thanks to Paramel, I gave her mom a copy of the executive order on lowering the flags and the pen with which I signed it. And they gave me, in turn, a collage of photographs of Sheila and Tammy and me and our kids together in one form or another over the past 6 years. I want to thank Sheila and her team, Terry Tucker in particular, and our team, many of whom are here with me in this room, for landing, along with the family, most importantly, in, I think, a very fitting place in terms of the celebration of her life. Sheila will lie in state, not 75 feet from here, in the rotunda in the state capitol, in the State House, next Thursday. She will lie in state next Friday at the historic courthouse in her beloved Newark. And then on Saturday, there will be a funeral service at the Basilica in Newark, all of which fitting for this incredible leader, incredible human being. And we will focus on nothing over the next 8 days more than sending her off with the sort of send-off that she so richly deserves. I've said this publicly in statements over the past couple of days, and I'll say it again here, and I've said it privately, most importantly to her mother and family. The decision to ask Sheila to be my running mate 6 years ago, again, almost uncannily to the day, was the best decision I ever made. God rest her soul and God rest her legacy. I just returned finally from seeing her colleagues down the hall and from visiting her colleagues at the Department of Community Affairs. And I said, we're sort of two minds right now. One is to mourn this precious gal and to remember all that she meant to so many of us, measured by the thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. And on the other hand, once we plow through these next number of days, it's up to all of us to live out her legacy as she would have wanted it to be, to lead like Sheila led, to be the public servant that Sheila was, and to connect with everybody in this state, most importantly, the folks most in need, too often left behind. That, to me, is our dual charge right now. Let's celebrate her life and send her off in the style to which she is richly deserving. And separately, let us live in the years ahead, whatever our roles might be, as public servants and leaders in the tradition in which she established. I'll take a couple of questions if you have them. Please.
How did do you recall what made you decide that it should be Sheila Oliver to be here? Was there a particular conversation, meeting with her? Was there an event that you knew she should be playing? There were others.
Yeah, so she and I, it's a great question. We met probably, don't hold me to it, probably 9-ish years ago, and we had great chemistry. And I knew her history. I knew what she stood for. I knew her character. We got to know each other. We got along really well. It just felt right at that level. In a more cold-blooded fashion, if you look at her resume, she's almost, if not singular, in the level of public service at all levels of government in an uncanny way, at the community level, at the county level, in the legislature, in a variety of capacities, Board of Education, as I recall, in East Orange. It's just one thing after another. And I thought to myself, I'm new to state government in New Jersey. Wouldn't it be good to have a partner who not only stood for the right things and with which I had great chemistry, and by the way, who was an icon, let me say that explicitly, especially among young girls and women of color, but who had this resume that was a showstopper to boot. And when you added up all of that, it was a no-brainer. Please.
I just wanted to ask, when the announcement came out on Tuesday, it was light on details, which is understandable because it just happened. I wonder if you can talk at all about some of the details, some of the basic stuff, because of cause of death, what day did she die? The announcement came out Tuesday, did you say what day? Those kinds of basic details.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Health for Sheila, not surprisingly, I suspect for many of us, although I've had my public realities having had cancer and surgery myself, but for her, not surprisingly, her health and her status was a private matter, and I want to respect that. Obviously, I defer to her family in terms of anything that they feel comfortable saying, but Sheila was on top of her game with many, many different data points right up toward the end. I think I can say definitively she passed on Tuesday because I was called from the hospital within minutes. So that part I can answer unequivocally. But I'll leave the rest of her health status to her family. But she was up until the very almost end, was in the game and was on top of the game. And there's lots of data points that support that. Please. Sorry, Charlie. Go back and then. Amen. So it's the Wealth Disparity Task Force, which Sheila chaired and had done great work on. It's also a collection of a who's who of superstars in this state, and that will continue to be a very high priority in her honor and memory, but also on its own 2 feet. The wealth disparities, if you're an African-American family or you're a Latino family as compared to your white brothers and sisters, are shocking. It's not just in New Jersey, but it's shocking. A big element of that is home ownership, which is why we put in the budget at Sheila's urging. I think urging understates the word. She led the charge on this to put money, serious money in for first home buyer, first home ownership, which is a big game changer. So the answer is resoundingly yes, both in her memory, but also because it is a passion of mine and of our administrations. Charlie, I'm sorry.
I think you touched on it a little bit. I wonder if you could name on the task force what major policy initiative that she had her imprint on.
Yep.
Your advisor, that's one question. The other one was, did her passing, her death, was a shock to you, or was there a sense that her health had been failing?
Yeah. On the first one, Charlie, I would have wealth disparity. I would have affordable housing in the Affordable Housing Production Fund, which was spearheaded by Sheila. I would have Atlantic City. I would have, in terms of our involvement and engagement in Atlantic City, has been led by Sheila to great effect. I would have a positive influence right here in the capital city on the list. I would have the programs that she spearheaded, especially during the worst days of the pandemic, on things like rental assistance, small landlord assistance in paying your not just your back rent, but your utility bills that were in arrear. I'm sure there's a lot more, but those are some of the things that occur to me. Charlie, it only came as a shock within, don't hold me to the minute, within the last 24 hours of her life. I remember engaging with her meaningfully on her birthday, which is mid-July. I always, when I was going out of town, I'd always shoot her a note, and she'd reply, "Thanks for holding the fort down while I'm gone." I think, George, you spoke to her Wednesday or Thursday of last week. It was only literally again, don't hold me to it, plus or minus 24 hours before her passing, and as you probably saw, we passed the stewardship of the state to the Senate President. Again, I want to thank him, and that was only the day before, if my math is right. Can I go over here and I'll come back to you, Dustin? Please.
First of all, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you, ma'am.
What I wanted to ask you was, I know it's too soon to talk about this because she was uncomfortable with the position that she was in, but you will have an opportunity to do so in the next month or so. Have you thought about who you would like to replace her?
I don't want to cop out on this. Let me just say, for the folks who may not be familiar with the requirement, I'm obligated to make a decision within 45 days of her passing. Again, acknowledging that was Tuesday the 1st, I believe, unless Paramel corrects me, and Lisa, it's September 15th. Secondly, all of our energies right now are focused on a proper farewell to Sheila. I think we've got it really well set up. It is historic, as it should be, given the historic person and figure that she was. So if I could beg off on that for the time being, I appreciate it. Please.
I know you have to come back. Do you plan on staying for this entire time?
I am, with God's luck, I'm going to try to go back there for a couple of days with my family. I didn't overlap with our daughter, who is not getting there till tomorrow, so I'm hoping to go back for a few days and be with kids and family. And then obviously we'll be back here to preside over the celebration and send-off of Sheila next week. Please.
Governor, do you know, was the Lieutenant Governor at the State Capitol
Was she here on Monday? I don't know the answer to that because I was not here. To the best of my knowledge, the answer is no. Because Monday, if my math is correct, Monday was the day, in fact, where, to Charlie's question, that was the day that, for the first time, that this felt like it was in a tough situation. Dustin, sorry.
Two things. Can you confirm any of the, there was a report that you were going to commission portraits for her and also Lieutenant Governor Sheila. And separate from that, you say Lieutenant Governor was at the top of her, well, I mean, taking word that still everybody in, in the circle kind of knew that she had health problems. Do you think in retrospect maybe she should have stepped aside and focused on her health? And do you think that it's fair for the public, don't they have a right to know when a top-ranking official has serious health problems and what contributes to it?
Yeah. So on the first one, no news to make, but that's something that is, I think, very intriguing. And as you look around this room, you feel like it's somewhere in the state complexes, there ought to be an acknowledgement. Let's remember, after all, the lieutenant governor is a new phenomenon in the state. Dustin, just to say, putting the fact that her health was important for Sheila, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I can say this confidently, as a private matter, so put that over here. There was no data ever until, as I say, the very, very, very end, that Sheila could not execute either as lieutenant governor or acting governor in my absence or as the commissioner of the Department of Community Affairs. And only it was literally at the very end. Please. That's all coming together, but I'll be very surprised if I don't have some words to say. And I suspect I will not be alone, and I know the family will be represented. I can't say enough good things about the family. When I say that, I mean at every level. Their fortitude, their courage. You know, I'm sitting with her mom. I spoke to her mom within an hour after she passed on the phone. She's 94 years old, remarkable woman. I sat with her last night, again, thinking through if I were in heaven to go through what she's going through. Holy cow. It's not a big family, but they are incredibly tight. They were her biggest cheerleaders. I can't say enough good things about them. And then also coming together on the more mundane but really important stuff. How do we memorialize her? How do we give her a proper celebration of her life, working with the family most importantly, but also with our team and her team, as I mentioned, led by Terry. And I can't say enough good things about them. I think with that, I'm going to sneak back. Please keep Sheila Oliver and her family in her prayers. And I suspect there'll be more things that will be coming out over the next number of days in terms of things that we may be planning or more specifics for the events that we already have announced. And I promise you we'll be back to you as soon as we know those. Thank you all. Jack Nicholson in that movie said 10 seconds from a clean getaway. Well, we've had 3 nominations with the Senate for some amount of time, some significant amount of time. So I would urge the Senate, it would be good by me if they could get those folks through their process. Advice and consent, which we have nothing but enormous respect for, but let's get them through. You said 1. No news to make on that, but let's start with getting those 3 across the goal line. Thank you all.